Are you stuck using the same chord progressions over and over, but you don't know how to break out of those tried and true chords? Well, here's a trick you might find useful. There are two very broad types of inspiration. The first is internal inspiration. These are things that you already know. In this case, the chord progressions you know and love. The classic 1-5-1, the slightly more elongated 1-4-5-1, and so on. And if you ever felt like you're in a rut or you have writer's block, you might start looking for inspiration elsewhere, external inspiration. You might go for a walk or read a book. Today, we're going to use an object to help us think about chord progressions differently, and it might give us a new direction to work in. And if you haven't guessed from the title yet, the object is dice. Yep, these humble polyhedra can help us write music. How? Well, remember when we talked about triads, those three-note chords that make up the basis for most music? If we remove one of these triads that isn't used as often as the others, like the seventh chord, we're left with 6 unique chords, and we can match those up to the faces of a 6-sided die. Now we can make our own randomly generated chord progressions just by rolling the dice. Let's make an example together to see how it works. First, take your favorite 6-sided dice and roll it 4 times. I got 6, 2, 1, and 4. Now, let's turn this into music. The 6 will become a 6 chord. To keep things simple, I'm just going to use C major so we don't have to deal with any sharps or flats in our key signature. So in C major, a 6 chord is A, C, E. A 2 chord is D, F, A. A 1 chord is C, E, G. And a 4 chord is F, A, C. Let's record this progression into our DAW so that we can get a better look at it. All right. So down here you can see our chord progression. Let's listen to it again. So here we have the chords in root position, and that doesn't sound very good because the chords aren't connecting to each other in any kind of musical way. So now I'm going to try different arrangements of the notes to see if I can make them sound more connected. I'm not going to change any of the notes in the chords, I'm just reordering the lowest or the highest note on the piano roll. So trying out different notes as the lowest note, different notes as the highest note. This is also called chord inversions. If you want to learn more about that, I will link to another video that talks more about chord inversions. So after playing around with the inversions, this is what I came up with. From here, you can use this chord progression in a bunch of different ways. You can write a melody and a bass line and just use it in a song, or you can leave it as is and just use it as an exercise to get out of the habit of using the same chords over and over. And that's what I like to use this exercise for, because there are things that I like about this chord progression, and there are things that I don't think I would ever use in my music. I really like that the highest notes in the chords move up in the scale. So this C, D, E, F motion, it would be really cool to have this continue that motion and go to a 5 chord where G is the root. Really, any chord with G in it would work, but I think it would be most effective if it was a 5 chord, something like and it sounds something like this. So, like completing that thought of C, D, E, F, G. So that's something that I really like about this progression. It has a nice movement from C to G. So maybe using something like this when you're transitioning from one section of the music to another, like from a verse to a chorus, or if you're going to modulate from C to G somewhere in a piece, this could work really well. One thing that I don't like about this progression is that movement from 4 to 6 when it loops. So if I turn on this loop section here and leave off that 5 chord, here's what it sounds like just looped together. So what I don't like is when it goes from that 4 to the 6, so that F major chord to that A minor chord, when it loops back around to the beginning. It feels very ambiguous to me because it's hard to tell where the loop starts and ends. When you're listening to music and you can tell where the phrasing is, like if the music has a 4-bar phrase or an 8-bar phrase, and you can just tell by listening where the chords are. I don't get that same feeling with this chord progression. It feels a little too loose and atmospheric. So if you're going for something like that, this could work out, but I wouldn't use this as a loop by itself because it feels too ambiguous. But definitely as a transition progression, going from one section to another, going from that C to a G, I think this would work really nicely. And that's just one way how you can write music with dice. It's a nice way to learn how to write for chords that you're not used to, and I hope you give it a try. Thanks for watching.